Isn't that what you just said?
All right. All right, we're live. You guys can come here to the front and sleep, you know. If you want.
I know, right?
So,
We're allowed to sleep then.
all right. So today we're talking about the law of signs. Where we greatly expand your knowledge and your abilities to handle problems. We've really been limited, in a manner of speaking, with the type of shapes that we can use trigonometry with, right? What have we really been limited to? Right triangles, okay? So we have no way of dealing with an isosceles triangle or a scalene triangle or obtuse or anything like that unless we cut it, you know, into a right triangle and then another right triangle. Okay? The thing is that process gets old real fast, and what we can do is we can just draw a generic triangle. I'm going to do what you should here. We can draw just a generic triangle, and we're going to cut it in half, or at least we're going to make a right triangle out of it, and we're going to notice some similarities that are going to work every single time, and it gives us this nice formula to be able to figure out sides and stuff like that without having to always go back to the right triangle well. Alright, so here's our triangle right here. We're going to call this side down here the base. This will be the height. And we'll give it some names, some letters here. A over there. Try not to make yours isosceles. If you can, make one of the sides longer than the other. Okay? Across from the base, we'll call this B. Then over here, C. By definition, the height is the shortest distance between one vertex and the opposite side. So we know from geometry that forms a right angle. And so there's some formulas, some equations we can write down. One of those, we can talk about the sine. The sine of angle A is, well, let me see here, we need to write a couple things down. Let's do some other labeling just real quick before I forget. Across from big A, this side over here, we're going to call this little a. And then across from angle C, this side over here, we're going to call that little c. That should help us out here. So now, what is the sine of angle A? Just by looking at this right triangle here. Anybody?
H over C.
H over C. And we can also talk about the sine of angle C. Somebody else? It's the sine of angle C right here.
Over A.
H over A, yep. And then I'm going to take this equation over here and solve it for H. So I'll multiply both sides by C. So little c times the sine of angle A equals H. Over here, multiply both sides by A. Little a times the sine big angle C equals H. So, since those two things are equal to H, then therefore, by the transitive property of equality, Jesus, thank you. Not your head, all right? Transitive property of equality, this equals that. So, C times the sine of angle A equals A times the sine of angle C. And then I'm going to divide this side by A, do the same thing over here, divide that side by A. At the same time, I'm going to divide this side by C and divide this side by C, so that the A's cancel over here, C's cancel over here, and we have the sine of angle A over little a equals c over little c. And then, we just hit the pause button right there, and we draw this triangle again. Well, maybe I can make it a little more like that. Something kind of like that. There's A, there's B, there's C. Here's little b across from big B, little a, and little c. And I'm going to draw a height again, but this time I'm going to draw it from vertex A over here to side A. I don't know if we should call this H. We could call it H, but that just gets a little confusing. I'm just going to call this X. And we can play that same kind of game that we did over there. Say the sine of angle B is opposite over hypotenuse. What's the opposite here by looking at this right triangle? A little bit louder? X over, yeah, X over C. We're going to go down to this vertex here. Sine of angle C is X over B, because you've got your opposite hypotenuse. And then, just like before, we're going to solve for X, so X equals little c times the sine of angle B. Over here, multiply both sides by B. We get X equals little b sine c. And just like over there, we have two things that are equal to the same thing, therefore they must be equal to each other. So c sine b equals b sine c. You can probably tell where we're going. We're going to divide both sides by little b. And at the same time, divide both sides by little c. So b's cancel, c's cancel, and we end up with sine of angle b over little b equals the sine of angle c over little c. And you say, oh wow, that's interesting. Well, what did the sine of angle c over little c equal over there? Sine of a, yeah, over little a. So we can say that also equals the sine of angle b over little b. That is one form of the law of sines. Sometimes you'll see it reciprocated, where you've just got the reciprocal or everything, where they just say, well, little a over sine a equals little b over sine b, which equals little c over sine c. It's all the same. It's just the reciprocal of it. But this is what's called the law of sines. And it works for any triangle, right? Except for the ones that it doesn't.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
And we'll talk about those next week. So, for our purposes right now, all of the ones that I'm going to tell you and give you, it works. Then we'll say, okay, well, it turns out that all the problems that I've given you met these certain qualifications, and I'll tell you what those qualifications are. And then you'll have to figure out, okay, when does it work and when does it not work? And then I'm going to have to show you what to do when it doesn't work. You got to do something else. So, now that's one of the top, hardest lessons here. So, let me give you the notes. That was more difficult than it was. first problem, see what the instructions have to say. God, you're a great teacher. I totally understand everything you're saying.
Okay, we don't need to pause the
Can you speak up a little bit? Can't hear you. There in the back. I don't even need to practice now. All right. All right. Trey, read to us those instructions, please.
Find each measurement indicated. Run your answers to the nearest tenth.
Okay. So there's a triangle. Is it a right triangle?
No.
No? Oh, well, I guess you can't use trig on it.
Oh, well, middle class.
Well, all right, no, can't. Find x, y. Well, this reminds me of the math joke, like student says, on the test is find x or find x, y, so they go, oh, here it is, found it. If you're a math teacher, I guess it's funny. All right, found.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So, but when you become a teacher or a math teacher, like it just like affects your brain in a way that like stuff that's like not funny to a normal person just becomes funny. Same thing happens if you're a dad, and I am both. So I have math teacher jokes and dad jokes. So you get the full treatment here. All right. So seriously though, find x, y. Let's go ahead and give that a name just to be a little bit easier. It makes the most sense since x, y here is across from z, that we call it little z. Okay? Now, the law of sines written for this problem would say something like this. The sine of y, okay, over little y equals the sine of z over little z, which equals the sine of x over little x, which would be right there. That would be the full out law of sines. The thing is, we don't need all three parts. We don't need two equal signs. We just need one of those equal signs and two of these ratios. Okay. So let's look and see what we have and what's given to us and what we need. So for instance, I see that we have y and we have little y. What's across from that? So I'm definitely going to put that. So sine of 58 degrees over 43 yards equals, and I need to find little z, so this is what I'm going to put here. So sine of 54 degrees over z yards. Put the units there, it really helps make it a lot clearer what's going on. And then you've just got a nice ratio. Now, I'm going to help you out so that all of your answers are all matching and they're all the same. And what I mean by that is don't round, okay? Solve this proportion for z first, then we'll type everything in the calculator, hit enter, and you're done. So we're going to do, here we multiply both sides by z. So z equals, if I put z up here, then I'm going to divide both sides by sine of 58. So I've got sine of 54 divided by sine of 58. And then at the same time, I'm going to multiply both sides by 43. So that way, you can just type this into the calculator, hit enter, and you're done. Sine of 54, make sure you close that parentheses, because it's going to put some parentheses in there. Divided by sine of 58, close that parentheses, and then times 43. Anybody have a number?
38.5.
I hear 38, I hear 41. Make sure you are in degree mode. Were you not in degree mode?
41.
I hear another 41. I need at least two more confirmations of that or the other
I have
number.
a 41.0.
Have another 41.
41.
All right, and we have another 41.0 as well. Okay, so 41.0 yards. Sounds good to me. Okay. Let's do another one of these. So, find HP. What am I going to label that as?
Okay.
Okay. set this up for us?
Sine h over h equals sine k over o.
We don't need the third one here. Sync right there. Cinch and sync. Then we just plug in the numbers. Oh, but I don't have.
It's 110.
Oh, how'd you figure that out? Add those two together, subtract from 180. Yep. Okay, so a little intermediate step here, not a problem. So the sine of 110 over 104 equals sine of 42 over k. Once again, even though you're tempted to maybe type this out and then round it and then type this in and round it, stuff like that, don't do that. Just solve everything for one variable. It's good in math so that we all get the same answer. It's really good in science. So that way if you make a mistake, you just have to fix one part of it. So multiply both sides by k. Sine of 42 is still going to be up here. But then I'm going to multiply both sides by 104. And at the same time divide both sides by sine of 110. So I need an answer and a couple of confirmations.
74.1.
Alright, I hear a 74.1. Agree or disagree? I have, the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Oh my gosh, y'all are so dead. Come on. I think I'm talking in an empty room. Alright, 74.1 sounds good. And we need units on this. Meters, thank you. I give you units. Alright, let's look at the rest of this very quickly. What's different about number 3 and number 4? Yeah, you only have one angle. And what are they asking for?
Angle T.
Measure of angle T. Okay, so let's see here. T, and we've got that one over there, and we've got those two. Might be able to do something right here. We could say the sine of 93 degrees over 38 centimeters equals the sine of angle T over 35. So therefore, the sine of angle T would be, multiply both sides by 35. 35 sine of 93 over 38. So, somebody tell me, type this in, 35 sine 93 divided by 38. That's going to be 0.9197 yada yada yada, right? Okay? Now that's the sine of t. How do I get t from that? Yes, use the inverse. Okay? So here's what you need to do. You need to say inverse sine and then hit answer. Or go up and select that other item. Don't round it. Just do inverse sine and then, do you all know how to do the answer? It's the second and then the little negative button down there at the bottom. It'll give you, so ANS, which stands for answer. And that is going to give you T. I'm going to walk around so you can show me that you can actually type that in. What do you hear? What do you say?
66.9.
I hear 66.9, and we have that seconded and approved by the audience here. But I'm going to walk around and make sure that you can do that full precision here. Second sign, then did you type it in by hand or
No, I did
the
this.
second answer thing?
No,
No, nope, that's walk around here. And then, yeah, right there, yeah. Now, clear it first though. Did you do the part 35 times sine 93? Now close that parentheses. Divided by 38. Enter rather than typing all that in, you can just do second sign, so inverse sign. And then, go on. You can do that, that's the same thing. Another thing, you hit second, you mentioned it was the last one. That's fine too. So, okay, you just do that. There you go. You get it? And here's what I'm talking about. I'm gonna go ahead and step right here. So you type that in. Oh, hold on. You have 33.8. So this is where you get that number right there. Alright. So now hit second sign. And then once you hit the up arrow, you might even do that. Yeah, sure, yeah, sure. Just gonna put that right down there. Close parentheses. There you go. Y'all got it? Yes, yes. Gentlemen, we good? Alright. And essentially the same thing with number 4. Are we okay on that one? Just set the, we'll see if you can do that one, and then if you get this one right, I'll give you the homework. And just looking ahead, we're not gonna do these, but what's different about number 5?
No triangle.
No triangle. Can you do this without a triangle?
Yes.
How are you gonna do it?
Draw a triangle.
Draw the triangle. Yeah, very straightforward here. Okay, so go ahead and do number 4 as a table. If you get it right, then I will give you your homework. Today we talked about law of sines, how to find sides or angles of triangles that are not right. Works every time except when it doesn't.